Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to the Stock Market Outlook video sponsored by MarketSmith. And this week we had the Nasdaq continue on into all-time highs after a nice breakout and a really strong Friday, especially after a bullish outside day on this Friday. We are a little bit extended from the 21 EMA, so I wouldn't mind a little bit of a rest here, but so far very bullish action into new all-time highs. Looking at the S&P 500, this is also acting quite well after this breakout. Once again, a little bit extended from the 21 EMA and 50 SMA, so some type of pullback consolidation might be in order, but overall very strong action, although it was on lower volume. And looking at IWO, the growth index, you can see this is still kind of building out a base here, and overall growth stocks didn't participate quite as much late last week, but we'll see if this can kind of overcome the 315.98 pivot sometime soon, as it is building out a nice little handle here, as many growth stocks, Crowd, DocuSign, Shopify are doing as well. So IWO looks decent. We'll see if we can kind of move up the right side of that base here. IWM a little bit stronger here, right near all-time highs, but also pretty much going sideways against the 21 EMA. So we'll see if these can kind of start running next week and break out of the stage 2 flat base. Going over to the FFTY, this might give a better picture of how growth stocks were performing last week in your portfolio. We had a pretty poor Thursday and Friday, finishing actually below the 50 SMA and 21 EMA, and you can see the high volume here. So a lot of growth stocks were hit a little bit last week, but overall with the rest of the market, the Nasdaq 100, S&P 500 stocks, especially the larger cap names, those are doing quite well in the market. So as always in this video, we'll talk about the leading stocks in the market. We'll talk about how our previous watch list performed last week. Then we'll move on to the indexes, sentiment, the IBD big picture article, and then finally the GMI signal from richardlmoglen.com. And if at any time you enjoy my analysis, please go ahead and leave a like down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. I post new videos just like this one every single week. So diving right in, let's start with the potential leaders. These are stocks that have been performing quite well. Number one is ASAN, continuing on with its bullish run here. Once again, it had a nice move up from this little consolidation here, but it may be getting a little bit extended from that 21 EMA. It's now 23.1% from this key moving average, but nevertheless a really strong stock and acting beautifully in this market, acting like a leader. Nvidia also trading nicely above the 21 and 50 SMA after a nice breakout from this longer term base. FRHC also moving up nicely. Not the highest volume last week, so maybe consolidation is in order sometime in the next few days or weeks. And it is at this point only 8.1% above the 21 EMA, but you can see that there is a little bit of space here above that key moving average during this run. Net also trending nicely above that 21 EMA and forming a little bit of a consolidation here below this high. So maybe it kind of goes sideways for another week and then presents a good breakout for a swing trade entry. DocuSign as well is consolidating really nicely above this pivot. And Crowd, Shopify look pretty similar, forming kind of high handles within their bases or just above the pivot and are acting really nicely, pretty much going sideways on low volume. Definitely on watch for next week if you can kind of push up from this level. CrowdStrike, as I said, really nice action. I really like the shakeout upside reversal on this Thursday. So we'll see if we can kind of push up above this high and continue to find support at this prior pivot, which is at this high of 251.28. But I love the action here. Really nice high handle on low volume. Roblox still kind of oscillating back and forth, back below the 21 EMA, but staying above the 50 SMA. It had an inside day on this Friday, so we'll see if it falls through to the upside or the downside and be ready for whatever scenario occurs. Shopify, like CrowdStrike, DocuSign, going sideways on pretty low volume after a really powerful move up on very high volumes. Definitely on watch for me. You've got a nice kind of downward trend line to draw in here, and we'll see if we can kind of push up and break out from this base. ASO continues to trend above the 21 and 50 SMA, looks pretty strong. SPT forming a little bit of a high handle here. Once again, like CrowdStrike, a nice upside reversal day on the Thursday, the 1st, and then not the greatest action on Friday, finishing near the lows, but still closing above Thursday's close and forming a little bit of a consolidation sideways high handle here above this pivot around 82, 83 or so. Ford going sideways, acting pretty well on low volume, tightening up against the 21 EMA. This will be on watch for next week, and we kind of break through these highs. You've got a lot of pivots here early on last week, as well as the late end of the week prior to that. So we'll see if we can kind of push up from that key moving average. Zscaler also pulling back, consolidating, nice upside reversal bar on this Thursday, and not the greatest close on this Friday, but we'll see if this can kind of push up and challenge this pivot, and then eventually the base pivot here, and that is at around 230.88. SE also pulling back here down to the 21 EMA, and we'll watch to see if this can kind of find support near this level, which is also near this midpoint pivot as well as the base pivot. And we'll see if we can kind of push up from this key moving average and challenge all-time highs. DEN continues to trend nicely above the 21 and 50 SMA. MDB, you can see actually had a gap down here on this Wednesday. I'm not sure if this was earnings or just news, but nice upside reversal action on this Friday. So we'll see if we can kind of hold this level. I don't like this gap down. It is a little bit of a caution flag for me. And this is a reasonably deep base as well at about 45%. VSTO, not great action. Downside reversal bar on Thursday and then fall through to the downside on this Friday on very high volume. This is not acting like a leader just yet. So we'll see if it can kind of recover quickly and regain that 21 EMA. Otherwise, I'll be kicking it off this list. GLB pulling back here down towards the 21 EMA. Nice upside reversal bar on the Thursday. We'll see if this confirms the upside or the downside, but this is the kind of first consolidation since this super powerful run. So I won't be surprised if this does pull back to 21 EMA, and maybe an undercut and reclaim setup could be in order. SPLK also pulling back down below the 50 SMA. This isn't acting too well at this point. App really losing the 21 EMA here and pulling it back all the way to the 50 SMA, and is also back below, actually finishing just above this base pivot here. So we'll see if we can kind of find support, but I don't like the velocity of this move to the downside back to the 50 SMA, these drops on high volume. QFIN also pulling back pretty hard. I don't like the look of this bar either. There's no real support, but we'll see if we can kind of form back up and regain that 21 EMA. Zim also pulling back, upside reversal off the 50 SMA. So we'll see if we can kind of form a 2-2 reversal through this high on either Monday or early next week. And we'll see what happens. This is the first pullback to the 50 SMA in this young IPO, but it has come quite a ways, so maybe it needs a longer term consolidation after that run. CRCT, not a great look on this Friday, an inside day to the downside on very high volume and back below the 21 EMA. This looks like it needs a lot more time. So that is a run through of some potential leadership stocks. Let me know down below in the comment section some stocks I should add to this list, or let me know if you think I should take off any of these that are on here. So moving on, let's talk about my focus list and how it performed this week. And overall, most of these just kind of went sideways and pulled back and formed handles, and that's okay. Stocks don't go straight up every week. ABNB still just kind of chopping sideways, having trouble with this anchor view app from the highs. Downside reversal and then confirmation to the downside on this Friday, back below that anchor VWAP and just a hair below the 50 SMA. So this looks like it's bottoming or actually trying to, but still needs a little bit of time in my mind. BYND, nice move up off this 2-2 reversal that you could have caught on last Friday, but now just pretty much going sideways this week. HubSpot forming a nice high handle, definitely on watch for next week. PGNY also forming a nice consolidation against the 50 SMA and just below the 21 EMA. Looks pretty decent. I'll be watching to see if we can kind of push through these highs right here. DocuSign, we already talked about, looks pretty good. CrowdStrike as well, consolidating nicely above that pivot. Shopify acting well for nice undercut and rally here off the 50 SMA on this Thursday, and confirmation to the upside here on the Friday, and a 3-bar break to the upside. We'll see if this can kind of form a momentum burst next week. UPSD still just going sideways, some downside reversal bars and bag closes here within this consolidation. But let's see if this kind of goes sideways, get some eyes off it, and then maybe it can have a strong move back towards all-time highs. OLO pulling back below the pivots, not a great look, and is back below the 21 EMA, but still above the 50 SMA. I want to see it kind of recover here, especially get back above this high right here, this pivot at 35 flat. But nice upside reversal bar on this Friday, and maybe it falls through for a 2-2 reversal through this high early next week. Path just kind of pulling back here. Nice action here, so I want to see it stay above this low. But at this moment, there's no clear setup. It is below a declining 21 and 50 SMA. Coursera also below those key moving averages, doesn't look great. Still looks like it needs a little bit of time, but it could start a move up off this strong bar on Friday. Oatly also declining below a declining 21 EMA. MRVI back below a declining 21 and 50 SMA, and the base pivot doesn't look great. And ARWR had a gap down on news. So overall, not the greatest showing from my watch list, but most growth stocks went sideways last week and formed handles, which is healthy. And there's definitely a lot of great setups, even among this list for next week. PGNY, DocuSign, CrowdStrike, Shop, 4 to just name really a few. So with that, let's go on and talk about sentiment by looking at my Twitter surveys. So overall last week, we had a drop in bullishness from 53.7% to now 43.4%. That's definitely a significant drop. And we did see kind of underperformance in growth last week, which is kind of normal given the sentiment results. But this is a significant drop in a very short amount of time, especially when the Nasdaq, if we go back to TC2000, we just look at the QQQ, this is breaking out into new all-time highs, and sentiment is like this. So for me, I view this as a confirmed uptrend, and this sentiment is actually a good thing because we're climbing a wall of worry. And a lot of stocks are setting up well, as I just went over, Crowd, Shop, HubSpot, all of those interesting names. So that is the sentiment survey on Twitter. Looking at the name exposure index, this is back up, which is not a great sign. It's back up to 91.72. So maybe we have a pullback in the near future on the major indexes. Looking at the put call ratio, this is increasing a little bit, which is a good sign. And the bulls versus bears poll is moving back towards 60, which is a slight negative. But once again, sentiment and all of that is completely secondary to how your stocks are performing, how the leaders are doing, and the indexes themselves. So with that said, let's move on to the IBD Big Picture article. The headline is Stock Market Gets Another Lift on Strong Jobs Report, but Some Growth Stocks Struggle. So overall, they discussed a strong action from the Nasdaq 100 after we had a really strong jobs report when it reported 850,000 when the consensus was 700,000. Definitely a surprising number here. And you've got some stocks acting well. The big caps, Google, Microsoft, Adobe, Apple is still in a buy range. But overall, there are some growth stocks being pressured. CRCT, we talked about. Overall, the FFTY was down 1.7% on Friday and down 1.5% on Thursday. Apps was also down. QFIN was down. But overall, the current outlook is a confirmed uptrend from IBD with 3 distribution days on the Nasdaq and 2 on the S&P 500. So to wrap things up, we've got the Wishbone blog GMI signal, which is still green since May 26, and the GMI score on Friday was a 6 out of 6. So overall, taking everything into account, my current view is a confirmed uptrend. We've got a lot of interesting stocks setting up. CrowdStrike, DocuSign, the ones I've continued to go over and over, are forming nice high handles, which I'll be watching for next week. And there's just a lot of opportunities out there, even with some growth stocks getting hit. So try not to be too bearish or bullish. Just look at what kind of stocks are setting up at this point. And right now, because there are a lot of setups, that kind of shifts my mindset to looking for new opportunities and to increase exposure. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, go ahead and leave a like down below and subscribe if you're new to the channel. And I'll see you guys in future videos. Thanks.